having me here today. It's a thrill to get to be with you. Let me go ahead and get this clicker thing going. Okay, here we go. This is me. It is great to be here. I'm going to start off with a little bit of a backstory. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the kinds of things I've been up to. In 2015, I made a leap. I decided I was going to start my own business. And I wrote out a little goal for myself that said, I will be the most sought after voice and speech coach in the country. I'd read this book, Write It Down, Make It Happen. And it said that people who write down their goals are more likely to achieve them. So I thought, well, I'll give it a shot. And then in 2019, I have to tell you guys, that goal was looking pretty achievable. Oh,
Sorry about that. Yes.
Stand by. Thank you. So in 2019, that goal was looking pretty achievable. As you were saying, I had just signed a contract to work with CBS News. I was going to be traveling between their New York bureau and their DC bureau, working with their anchors and reporters. I was traveling regularly to Bristol, Connecticut, which some of you guys may know is the home of ESPN. The mothership is there. I had just written Hall of Fame, or coached and written for Ray Lewis, Hall of Fame speeches for Major League Baseball player and NFL player Ray Lewis. I was working with executives and project managers for companies in their Dallas offices for people like Cisco Systems and PepsiCo and Bell Helicopter. And then suddenly everything stopped. Completely stopped. This was the end of March 2020. Maybe a few of you guys remember what was happening at that time. Yeah, everything stopped. No more travel, no more on-site coaching, no more clients coming into my office. I'm a voice and speech coach. I had been working with people on physical presence, vocal presence, how to project confidence and authority when they walk into a room. What the heck was I going to do? As I scrambled to try to keep my business together, probably like some of you, trying to figure out this new world, I started seeing a few clients virtually. I saw some of my reporters virtually, which is something I'd done a little bit of as a follow-up session after I'd met them in person. With companies like Cisco Systems, it was pretty easy for them to transition to WebEx. I mean, they're pretty familiar with that system. But those were established clients. I'd already seen how they filled a space, how their body language influenced the way they sounded. Would virtual sessions work for new clients? I had no idea, and I seriously had my doubts. What would that first session even look like? How was I going to assess how they were using their bodies, how they were breathing? But I also saw an opportunity. Everybody was switching to virtual sessions. Was there anything I could do with the knowledge that I had about communication to help people navigate in this new world? The answer is absolutely, there was a way. Everyone was switching to virtual. These tools that I used, I realized are pretty fundamental for communication, no matter what the platform. It's really just a matter of scale. So what are these principles of communication that are foundational regardless of the platform? To get at the answer, we really have to understand what is the purpose of these interactions. Sorry, I skipped that guy. What is the purpose of these interactions? And for most of my clients, and probably for you as well, usually the goal is connection. I want to build a connection with this person that I'm talking to. Whether it's virtual, whether it's in person, I want to build a connection. How do we indicate to that other person that we're interested in making a connection, in a relationship, that we want to build trust and rapport? It's through the way we communicate. through those signals that we're sending, verbally, non-verbally, that's what indicates to them how committed we are to that conversation and ultimately to that relationship. So we're going to be talking about communication as a system. And I like to talk about 4 pillars of this system. So the first one is intention. Intention is really the goals, the thoughts, the feelings behind the words. What's the goal? What's the purpose of this interaction? And then language, pretty clear. Here we're talking about how you're crafting your message so that it's appropriate for the people that you're talking to. And I'm looking here also at things like, are we using a lot of filler words? Are you using a lot of jargon? Can we make it clearer? And then the things that I'm most excited about, physical presence and vocal presence. For physical presence, we are being mindful here of posture, gesture, facial expression. What are you communicating through your body language? And I believe the voice follows the body. So physical presence is actually very important to how you sound. And that's that last piece here that we'll look at, which is vocal presence and speech patterns. And here I'm looking at generally pitch, pace, and volume. So we're going to go through each of these. The first one we're going to look at is intention. As I said, these are the thoughts and feelings behind the words. What's the point? Why are you talking to us today? And what are we going to get out of it? To help my clients get at what that intention is, we usually go through 3 questions. The first question is who? Who are you talking to? That seems kind of obvious that you would want to consider this, but there are lots of things about that audience that we want to keep in mind. You know, if it's a larger group, do I have a wide range of experience here? Do I have people who have a broad knowledge base or people who really don't have any experience with this at all? Do I know in my small group, I always have that person who's going to ask a million questions. I always have that person who's going to push back. If I think about that, I can anticipate and prepare for what I might say in response. Once I know who, then I start to think about why. Who cares? Why do they care about what I have to say? Why does what I have to say have value for them? And then once I know who and I know why, then I can start to think about what do I want them to do or think or feel as a result of this interaction? If you're more of an action-oriented person, you can think about it as, what am I doing to them? Am I warning them? Am I reassuring them? Am I inspiring them? To give you a sense of how important this goal is, understanding what your intention is can impact your delivery and what you sound like, I need a volunteer. Such a bold volunteer. So you can see, we didn't change the lines, same words. We really just changed the goal, the purpose of those words, completely changed her tone. The way she was using her body, the way she was using her voice. If you notice in that last one, she pulled back on her volume because she was comforting me. That's why intention can be really important. You want to think through what is the purpose so that it helps you say it in a way that the person you're talking to will hear it. Next, we're going to take a look at the language. This is not something that I deal with a lot. I'm not a writing coach, but I do, especially with structured presentations, I do like to try to understand what is the story that they're trying to tell. And I think actually that some of these points apply to other unstructured types of conversation or presentations as well. Maybe it's just a meeting that you're having one-on-one or in a small group. We still can think about some of these points. For example, in a structured presentation, I harp on the introduction. How are you laying out expectations for what we're going to be hearing today? Because that helps prime us so we know what to pay attention to, so we get a little bit more out of it. It also can be an opportunity to lay out that why piece of it. You're telling us why what you're talking about is going to make a difference for us today. And I think that you could really do that in an unstructured meeting as well, setting the stage as you're opening up the meeting, laying out the expectations. Style, when I say conversational versus presentational, what I really mean is the presentational style just doesn't seem as effective anymore. It's not engaging. It feels kind of like a book report. and you're listing lots of facts. And if you think about the intention piece, in my mind, it's more about you. It's more about me. My intention, when I dig sometimes and ask people if it was kind of a flat presentation, I'll say, what was your intention? What were you trying to accomplish here? And they say, honestly, I just wanted to get through it. Or honestly, I just didn't want to mess up. Or with some of my more competitive business types, they say, I wanted to prove I deserved to be there. I wanted to show off how much I knew. And that's how it sounds. It becomes about you. So the intention piece allows you to be more outward focused and a little bit more conversational, which then is more engaging and more dynamic. For specificity, looking here at things like I said earlier, are we using a lot of filler words? So next we're going to be talk about that kind of thing. It really does undermine your authority and credibility. You may have a great sense of what you're talking about. Sometimes those are just habits, and we all do it a little bit. It's when it happens over and over throughout the conversation or throughout the presentation that it starts to be distracting and pulls us away from your message. And we want to minimize those distractions. Also, jargon can sometimes be difficult for people to pay attention to. So just being mindful, again, of that knowledge base of the who. Can you get away with some of that jargon? Usually I say just avoid it. Try to be very clear and explicit. Story. Are we starting from a strong introduction, flowing with that message through to a really strong conclusion? So many times when I work with people, they'll have a presentation that they get to the end and it feels like, oh, this was the last bullet point. Any questions? And they don't really tie it back up with the bow. So with the conclusion, it's a great opportunity to remind them of why all these things we just talked about are important. And then transitions. Again, that's part of the storytelling. How are you moving us from one point to the next? Does it move the story forward, or does it feel like I'm just moving through a list? Now we get to another kind of fun, interactive activity. We're going to talk about physical presence. And I'm going to show you guys two speakers. We're going to watch two videos together, and I want you to talk back to me about what you see and why what they're doing makes you feel the way you do about this person. Here are some of the things that we want to examine. We're looking at relaxation. Relaxation in the body, relaxation in the voice is really the best way to project a sense of confidence and ease. When you are relaxed in your body and your voice, it sets the other people at ease. We have these, I'm sure you guys have heard of this, we have these mirror neurons in our brains. And as if I'm carrying a lot of tension into my presentation, you will pick up on that. Your brain will register the tension, and you will even start to feel a little bit of that tension in your body, and it will make you uncomfortable. So finding ways to bring that relaxation and ease. We're also going to be looking at how they own their space. And I mean just that. How are they owning their space? Really just, are they taking up space? Are they giving themselves permission to take up space? I think we as ladies in particular are really bad about this. We tend to pull into ourselves. We're oftentimes, I see you trying to uncross. We'll cross our legs and pull our arms in front of ourselves. And it really just diminishes your power. I have worked with many ladies that will talk through this and they'll say, oh, I never really considered that I'm allowed to take up space. And I don't mean in a way that's huge and aggressive. It's just taking up, feeling like you can expand and take up room. That ties into the posture and the gesture. Posture, are they conveying confidence and authority? And what does that look like? For confidence and authority, we typically associate that again with size, owning their space, expanding through the chest and the torso, pulling the shoulders back, and standing upright. Whereas the opposite of that would be if I were pulling my shoulders forward and maybe I'm collapsing through my spine, immediately I lower my status. I look much less powerful in this position. And you can imagine the voice that comes out of this. It gets a little quieter, more meek, small. Gesture. There's a lot of great research coming out about gesture right now, if you're a voice nerd. The research is showing that the more animated someone is, both physically and vocally, the more they are deemed trustworthy, knowledgeable, credible, likable by the audience. This makes sense if you think about it. If they're really engaged in their body, it feels like, oh, they are so passionate about their message. It's in their whole body, as opposed to being very still. And also, if you remember our system, each of those components influences the other. So if we make a change in one piece of that system, it ripples through the whole thing. So if I have a client who is not allowing themselves to move and gesture, they're very stiff, and podiums make this happen too, where you're behind that podium, chances are your vocal delivery is going to be a little flatter as well. So just something to keep in mind. This also becomes important when we're talking about a meeting where you're sitting, or a virtual meeting. Do I still have to engage my body? Yes, and we'll talk about some ways to help you do that. We also know that when you use gesture, you are more likely to use facial expression. So the more you gesture, the more facial expression there will be. Facial expression is important because it indicates to the other person how engaged you are with them and with your message. And then eye contact. Making eye contact as you come into that meeting establishes a connection right away, establishes that engagement with the other person and with your material. And we'll talk about this a little bit with virtual as well. I know you don't do a ton of virtual meetings anymore, thank goodness, but it's not going to go away. We're still going to have a little bit of that. So we'll talk about some strategies to help make that happen. So now we're going to watch 2 different videos. And what I want to have you guys do is, first of all, think about how you feel about this person, and then start to tease apart why. What are they doing with their bodies that make me feel that way? So we're going to watch the first one and then have a little conversation, and then we'll watch the second. And I think we have microphones ready to help if you guys have a comment. They're going to come around and help you out so we can all hear you. So this first one is the head of Microsoft.
So we're going to talk a lot more about Windows, tomorrow when Panos is up here. The other thing that we're also very excited to launch is the Copilot stack, right? After all, we built all these Copilots with one common architectural stack. We want to make that available so that everyone here can build their own Copilot for their applications. We will have everything from the AI infrastructure to the foundation models to the AI orchestration, all the way up to your Copilots and its extensibility. In fact, the other thing that we're going to do is have common extensibility across all of these surfaces, right? Whether it is ChatGPT, Bing Chat, Microsoft 365 Copilot, or all of the Microsoft Copilots. And of course, your own Copilots, we can share the same extensibility model. This is one of the most powerful things for your developers, for every developer to be able to write a plugin and have it reach billions of users across all of these surface areas. So to be able to show you everything in action, from both the plugin extensibility to all of the Copilots we announced, let me invite up on stage Yusuf Mehdi to come show you all of this. Yusuf, let me throw it.
Okay, is that a tech thing? I think it might be a tech thing with the way that they dress. And your other comment about moving with purpose, I think is right on. Oftentimes the gestures can be distracting when they are not coming out of what you're saying. And the size and rate of the gesture is something we didn't really talk about. But if the gestures are fast, if the gestures are kind of held into your body like he is doing, if you notice his elbows are kind of close to his body for a lot of it, if they're fast, they can be distracting. It can look nervous or frantic. Also, if they're sharp, they can draw attention to themselves. I was working with an anchor recently, and her news director had said, she's just a little bit much. And she was a morning show anchor. She's a little bit much. And I started watching her footage, and it was all about her gestures, actually, and the way she used her body. It was very sharp and very fast. She would say, next, we're going to talk about adopting pets. Then it was all sharp and fast. Wonderful person, very engaged, but just needed to slow that down a little bit and soften it a little bit, and then everything was fine. Great. Now we're going to watch a second video and have kind of a similar conversation. I think you guys will recognize this person. Zuckerberg.
Gives us the freedom to be ourselves. It's easier to feel like you belong when you're part of smaller communities and amongst your closest friends. So it's no surprise that the fastest ways that we're all communicating online are private messaging, in small groups, and in stories. As the world gets bigger and more connected, we need that sense of intimacy more than ever. So that's why I believe that the future is private. This is the next chapter for our services. In addition to the digital town square, we also need a digital equivalent of the living room that is just as built out as a platform with all of the different ways that we want to interact privately, with messaging and small groups and sharing where the content doesn't stick around forever, simple and secure payments, private ways to share your location, and over time, lots of more different ways to interact privately. This needs to exist.
Very different style. Now remember, it's tempting for us to want to talk about the way he's talking, the sound of it, but let's look just at the physicality. Gesture, posture, how do you feel about him? And then we're going to tease apart, well, what is he doing physically that makes you feel that way? Any thoughts that want to be shared on his physicality? Over here?
Back here.
Back there.
He was very contained in his space, that he wasn't very, it was like you could, almost like a talking head, like he was.
Could you stand while you're talking? Thank you.
He was very contained in his space, so it could have been just like a talking head. He was not very moving and engaging. And compared to the last video that we saw, like I noted, like the last speaker didn't engage with the slides at all, and he did a little bit, but that was one thing. Like I've seen an Apple presentation and they were very engaging with the slides and what was going on, not to compare, or, but just the tools that you have beyond your speech also affect your presentation as well.
Great. And can you tell me that talking head kind of gesture, posture that he had, what did you feel about him because of that?
I think he also mentioned small a lot. And so just the repetitiveness of small, and I thought, well, he's very contained, very small, kind of meek. So I didn't feel like a very powerful presence from him.
Okay, great, interesting. Any other comments? I think we have one over here. And if you can stand when you tell us what you think. Yeah. Did a lot of you feel that way? I have had it said at presentations before, it's really not fair to use Zuckerberg because people have opinions about him already, that, he's kind of robotic in the way that he speaks. But actually, I think that makes it really good for us to analyze it. Why do people have that opinion of him? And I think it goes to your point, there's not a lot of engagement physically. He is gesturing. I agree with you. I think it looks like maybe he's had some coaching there, but it's outside of and not really engaging the torso. So I think that's why it feels a little like a talking head. It's not coming through the whole body. It's all outside. And then we were talking about the expansiveness of gestures. You notice when he gets to that point where he said, the future is private. There's something about that bent arm that doesn't look fully committed, and it's almost like he expected it to be a huge applause line, but nothing came. But I think part of it is this not fully extended arm. It makes a big difference in how committed you are to that gesture, to how we feel about it. Now I'm going to be really excited about it if I see him fully committing. Great. To do with his intention. Like, I want them to understand this intimate, more private space is coming through in the way he delivers his message, possibly. Great. So now we're going to move on and we're going to talk about we're going to watch these two again, and we're going to get to their vocal and speech patterns. I find that we have a little bit more vocabulary to talk about the way people use their bodies. And when we start to tease apart why a voice or why a speech pattern makes us feel a certain way, it's a little bit trickier. Here are the ways we're going to talk about it. More than anything, I like to focus on emphasis. How are they highlighting information for me so that I know what's important and what I need to pay attention to? A comparison I use is that if I were giving this information to you in written format, there are lots of things I could do to direct your eye towards what's important, right? I could put it in bullets. I could underline it. I could put it in all caps. I could italicize it. What is the vocal equivalent? It's pace, pitch, and volume, which create the tone. So pacing. It's rare that I have someone who speaks too slowly. It does happen, but it's pretty rare. Usually the issue is that you're fast thinkers, you have a fast motor, and so you speak quickly too. The thing to understand about that is if you speak quickly, it can be perceived in ways that you don't intend. It can seem nervous. It can seem like maybe this information isn't that important, in which case I would say, well, why is it in there? Just cut it. Or even worse, it can make the person that you're speaking with feel like they are not important. You don't have time for them, you're rushing them, you're moving on to the next thing. So being mindful of pace. For pitch, we're actually talking about the highs and lows of your voice, low notes, high notes. As I said earlier with gesture, we're finding that greater animation in the body, greater animation in the voice tend to be deemed as being more trustworthy, more credible, more knowledgeable. We already talked about the reasons for that. I think it's because it's coming from the whole body, but it needs to be authentic. Right? We don't want it to sound sing-songy. We don't want to go up and down just because I need to have animation in my voice. It's kind of like you were saying in the back. It needs to happen because there's a purpose. My intention is that I want you to understand this point. So I highlight that for you by slowing down. I tend to go a little higher in my pitch, and I tend to get a little louder when I'm saying something that I want you to pay attention to. For volume, some things to keep in mind here is that for me, volume is really the language of connection. If you are quiet, it's almost like your vocal energy doesn't quite make it to the person you're speaking to, and they have to work harder to hear what you're saying and understand what you're saying. They're not going to listen for very long. They're going to tune you out because they don't want to work that hard. On the opposite end of that spectrum, if we are speaking in a tone that's too loud, it can feel like it's not connected because you're talking at me or past me and not to me. So that's something to keep in mind too. And when I work with broadcasters, that's one of the first things I do is we try to bring the volume down so it doesn't sound like Anchorman or, sounds announcery, and it doesn't sound like they're really talking to me. So volume can be really important. And you'll notice with breathing, I have this starred. That's because it actually bridges both vocal and physical. For voice, it makes sense, right? If I'm breathing properly, if I'm breathing from the diaphragm, which we've probably all heard that phrase for singers and actors, but it has to do with anybody who needs to use their voice. If I'm breathing well, my voice is going to sound stronger. I'm going to have better control over it. There's more nuance I can have. If I'm not breathing well and I'm breathing kind of high in my chest and thin, my voice is going to sound thin. It's going to come across as nervous. For physicality, interestingly, it's going to have kind of the same effect. If I'm breathing high in my chest and quickly and in a shallow way, that's how we breathe when we're in fight or flight response. When I'm in fight or flight, my breathing shifts and it's kind of high up here and I feel like I can't really get a good breath. This might happen to you guys if you ever feel nervous. That is something that the person you're speaking to is going to pick up on. They're not going to say, oh, Jenni's in fight or flight response, but something about the way I'm breathing is going to make them feel uncomfortable too. So actually dropping the breath down lower in the body can help you project a sense of greater confidence and ease as well. So we're going to watch these two again. Now we're focusing on these aspects of their voice. How are they using pitch, pace, and volume? And how does that make you feel about them? Since we've already analyzed the physicality, also notice, is the physicality impacting the way they sound?
So we're going to talk a lot more about Windows, tomorrow when Panos is up here. The other thing that we're also very excited to launch is the Copilot stack, right? After all, we built all these Copilots with one common architectural stack. We want to make that available so that everyone here can build their own Copilot for their applications. We will have everything from the AI infrastructure to the foundation models to the AI orchestration all the way up to your Copilots and its extensibility. In fact, the other thing that we're going to do is have common extensibility across all of these surfaces, right? Whether it is ChatGPT, Bing Chat, Microsoft 365 Copilot, or all of the Microsoft Copilots. And of course, your own Copilots, we can share the same extensibility model. This is one of the most powerful things for your developers, for every developer to be able to write a plugin and have it reach billions of users across all of these surface areas. So to be able to show you everything in action from both the plugin extensibility to all of the Copilots we announced, let me invite up on stage Yusuf Mehdi to come show you all of this. Yusuf, let me throw it.
Okay. Thoughts about the way he's vocally expressing himself? It's harder, right? So we're looking at pacing, pitch variation, and volume level. Okay, we're going to watch the second one. Oh, one other point I want to make. Did you guys notice how his gesture would sometimes reinforce the words that he was saying? Like when he said Chat GPT and 365 and blah, blah, blah. I don't know all the terms. And then all of them. The voice was following the body. It was sharp when he was kind of pointing those out, and then he kind of stretched that out with the movement that he was using as well. So now we're going to take a look at our friend, Mr. Zuckerberg.
Privacy gives us the freedom to be ourselves. It's easier to feel like you belong when you're part of smaller communities and amongst your closest friends. So it's no surprise that the fastest ways that we're all communicating online are private messaging, in small groups, and in stories. As the world gets bigger and more connected, we need that sense of intimacy more than ever. So that's why I believe that the future is private. This is the next chapter for our services. In addition to the digital town square, we also need a digital equivalent of the living room that is just as built out as a platform with all of the different ways that we want to interact privately with messaging and small groups and sharing where the content doesn't stick around forever, simple and secure payments, private ways to share your location, and over time, lots of more different ways to interact privately. This needs to exist.
Okay. Thoughts on his delivery way that it's not only going down in pitch, but he often drops his vocal energy at the ends of phrases. So he has to work a lot harder to get that energy back up. It's hard then for him to build momentum. Whereas with the first person, there's a lot of animation, a lot of dynamics. Here, it's harder for him to build because he keeps dropping energy at the ends of phrases. That's a great point.
I felt like a lot of the things he was doing didn't mesh between his gestures, his vocal inflections, the words he's saying. None of it seems to be going together. I was saying before, he looked very robotic, but it's almost like a robot whose gestures are out of sync with the track in the background. That makes sense.
What effect did that have on you in the body and the voice? Kind of makes you feel more trust in them. Great. Really great observations, you guys. Oh, let's do one more. Yeah.
Okay, so I've noticed
Crazy actually about the first one is I can't take my eyes off of the white soles of his shoes. Did you guys notice that? And we'll talk about that with virtual. You want to be mindful of where my eye is going. If I have a really dark background, I'm wearing all dark things, but my shoes are white, I'm probably going to look at them. Yeah. And so to go back to pauses for a second, one thing I do like about his delivery is he gives the audience an opportunity to process what he just said. and to transition with him. Sometimes I'll have a person who's a fast talker, that's the feedback they get, and we'll find that it's not so much their rate of speech, but it's that they don't take beats. And those pauses are really important because they help us transition with you or process what you just said. And they can be very powerful to help you highlight information. You take a little beat around either side of the really important information. Great. Thank you guys for participating in that. Hopefully you will be more, a little bit more critical and understanding why you feel the way you feel about some of these people. I know you don't do a lot of virtual meetings right now, but there is some overlap here that I just want to highlight for you. You would think that most people had this all figured out after pandemic. I have found that I don't know if people are getting lazy about it or if they're forgetting or they think it doesn't really matter anymore. Or maybe they never figured it out in the first place. But there are a few things that you really want to keep in mind when you're setting up your virtual meetings. And some of these things we'll touch on also apply to if you're in a meeting where you have to sit while you're leading it. So the first thing is lighting. This, I think most of us has figured out by now, right? I don't want to set myself up in front of my light source because I'm silhouetted then. I don't want only light coming from the front because then I look like a floating head. So I want to keep kind of ambient light around me so it gives it a little depth of field and is, again, not distracting. Most of the things I'm going to touch on are really just ways to minimize distraction because we want them to listen to your message and not have them be pulled away by something that doesn't really matter. The next thing is your background. There's a great research study that just came out. I can't believe it took this long, but there's a study that came out about the impact your virtual background has on how you're perceived. And I can share that with you guys if you're interested. What they found they tested the blurred out background, they tested virtual backgrounds, they tested really busy backgrounds and really blank backgrounds. What they found, do you guys have a guess? What was the best background? What was the best thing to have? Library, plants, books and plants. That's right. Yeah. Books and plants. The viewers tended to think the speaker was educated, friendly, more approachable. They just liked them better. With the virtual backgrounds, they're getting so much better. The thing that distracts us about the virtual backgrounds is, when you move and sometimes like your hand disappears. People didn't really like that. If you're going to use it, though, because some of them are really great, some of them have books and plants, the best thing to do is have a blank wall behind you. You don't want to try to disguise all the messy stuff behind you because that's going to make it more likely that parts of you will disappear. So a blank thing behind you would be great. So being mindful. Someone also told me that the Zoom background is like the new power suit. So being mindful and thoughtful about what you put back there, just like you would be mindful of what you're picking out to wear when you're trying to make a good impression. Framing. You guys, I still have people who have issues with this. I have one client. Every time she comes on screen, I see this much of her. From here up, we all have a little square in one corner where we can see ourselves. So I encourage you to check it and make sure things are lined up where you want it to be every time we have to adjust it. And I'm sure we remember from Zoom times when the parents would be too close and it's like giant forehead and we're missing the rest of them. We want to have a framing that allows us to still be expressive physically, right? To still have that physical presence that we talked about earlier. Eye line, this is comparable to the eye contact that we were talking about under physical presence. For virtual, it's harder. What it usually means is that you need to look right at the camera for most computers. That's hard because the person you're talking to is down here. So what I usually recommend is for the very beginning of the call, in those important moments, or even sometimes when you're listening to them, look at the camera because it's going to feel to them like you're making eye contact. So especially at the very beginning of the call, if you can look right at that camera, and if you're not sure where your eye line, where does it really look like I'm making eye contact, test it. Have somebody take a look at it, record a little bit of a zoom to see where you should be looking. So that this is all about connection. Eye contact is a huge piece of that. If I can fake it in a way to make eye contact and make it feel like I build a stronger connection with them right off the bat. For body language, here's where it overlaps really with seated meetings. We still want to think about owning our space. We still want to think about using expansive gestures, even if nobody sees them, because the voice follows the body. If you're seated, let's say you're having a meeting at your desk or you're sitting at the boardroom table or something, how do you make this happen? You want to try to keep the chest and the shoulders open, which means sometimes you have to keep your hands outside of the frame of your body. It's very comfortable for us to sit with our hands in front of us at the desk. Opening up just makes you look more authoritative and more powerful. The other similarity I see has to do with the chair you're in. So depending on the chair, it can be very easy and tempting for you to kind of lean back in that chair. That has the impact of making you seem disengaged. All your energy is going backwards. All we have to do is bring the body a little bit more towards 90 or slightly forward. And that does 50% of the work for you. Already my energy is coming right at you instead of feeling like I'm sitting back and disconnected. Last thing about that is, again, we're just making sure that we're minimizing distractions. So that means wardrobe. If I'm wearing something that draws my eye to it, I'm no longer paying attention. They're no longer paying attention to what I'm saying. Jewelry, we just want to make sure it's nothing noisy, clangy that you could hit against the desk. That's really more important in the virtual meetings. Brings us back to these principles of communication being foundational and appropriate across all communication platforms. Right now, it's still evolving. We're kind of in a hybrid situation. A lot of people have gone back full time and are meeting face to face all of their clients. I'm still probably 90% virtual. So it's not going anywhere. It's this evolving communication environment. We don't know what it's going to be in the future. I mean, maybe 10 years from now, I'd be here as a hologram talking to you. But regardless of the platform, these principles of communication are going to serve you well when you consider them. The intention, your language that you're choosing, your physical presence. What are you projecting through the cues you're sending through your body language and your vocal presence, your speech patterns, the way you're using your pitch and pace and volume. Connection to another human being is a gift. It is a true gift. And I am so grateful for the gift of your time and attention today. I really appreciate it. And I'm hopeful that the tools that we discussed will give you some things to go home and try to help make those relationships that you're building last a really long, long time. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any. I think we're right at time. Find me, Jenni, at jennisteck.com. I have a blog where I write about some of these things. That was a great question. I think the best resource you have is all of this technology that we have now. You may not be doing virtual meetings all the time, but if there's any opportunity for you to record yourself, that's the best way for you to learn. You get more familiar with the habits that you have. Where are the opportunities for me to improve? Keeping in mind these things that we talked about today. I know people don't like to watch themselves or listen to themselves back, but it is an invaluable tool. I like to think about it as a football player who goes back and watches their game footage, right? They don't have any ego about it. They watch and say, oh, I missed that tackle. How come? And they watch and they see, oh, I went left when I should have gone right. Next time I'm going to go left. So you just use it as a tool. You don't have to show it to anybody else. You're just watching it for your own benefit. And there are some great AI tools. I was talking earlier with Laura about some of the AI tools that are conversation analysts. If you are on a Zoom, I wish we could figure out how to do it. Maybe we can figure out how to do it in a one-on-one conversation. I guess you could record yourself somehow, like with your voice memos, and then feed it into a program. But there's several, but one that I'm familiar with is Chorus, and it is a conversation analyst. It will give you all kinds of great feedback about how you're communicating. It will tell you your words per minute, and you can compare that to normal. You may say, oh, wow, I had no idea I was speaking that quickly. Seems normal to me. It will tell you how often you're interrupting the other person. It will tell you what percentage of the time was spent with you asking questions versus you making statements. So lots of valuable information, and it's out there. We may as well use it. Most of it's free.
Right over here.
Thank you for your great information today, first of all. And second, I have a question about how do you feel about when people are standing during a meeting with all of our stand-up desks, or when they have the new like walk on the walking pad at your desk? So you see somebody's head like do this through a meeting,
Yes.
those kind of things. Just curious.
If it's virtual, I assume that's what you're talking about. You wouldn't be walking on a treadmill in person, I guess. Yes, I think if you have access to a standing desk, that's ideal. You can really engage the full body. The other danger about chairs is that if you're pulled all the way up to your desk, it kind of limits what you can do with your arms and engage the body. So usually I'll have people push back slightly from the desk and kind of perch on the edge of the chair. That allows you to really engage the body a lot more. And we'll put one foot slightly in front of the other so that your energy is coming right forward. But that's a great question. I think the treadmill is a little strange because we can tell you're doing it, which means to me, you're not really focused on our conversation. So things like that show me that you're distracted as you're speaking to me, I think are problematic. Yeah, great question. Another resource I just thought of about owning your space and presence, especially for physical presence, is the Amy Cuddy video. It's a TED Talk, Amy Cuddy, Cuddy. And she's the one who came up with the power poses, hold this pose for 2 minutes before you have to present something or go into an important meeting. It's great. So her TED Talk was so popular, she then put it into a book called Presence. It's a great, great book.
Oh, right here.
Yeah. Oh.
Just a curiosity when it comes to like speaking. I'm sorry, I have a very loud volume. Just regards to like a lot of times capturing attention. I always notice like sometimes comedians do a very good job. What are your thoughts about when it comes to like comedians and their style when it comes to gathering attention or the presence?
But one of the things that I think they do really well that we could learn from is, for some reason, when we do a huge switch in volume, like maybe or pitch, we're up here and then we're on here and then it's really serious. Like big shifts seem to be something that they use a lot. The hook at the beginning, how are they, and they, just so you know, I'm sure you do, they test out their bits a million times before they get up there. And that's part of why it looks so natural. Like I'm just having thoughts off the top of my head and I'm hilarious. Possibly, but they've done it a million times in lots of different clubs and they know what works. If it doesn't get attention, then they try something different. So they have a lot of rehearsal time. So I would say also that's something to learn from them. Practice is a good thing. Even if, sometimes I'll have companies where they do a lot of role play to anticipate maybe something that's upcoming that they just want to talk through and understand how they're going to manage the situation. But a lot of people hate role play. So even if you just have someone that you could talk through the situation with you, that can help as preparation too. And then if you have an actual more structured presentation, go through it out loud. Out loud makes a difference. It gets in your muscle memory. So if you get up there and you're nervous, the body kind of takes over for you. And if you are limited on time, the things that I recommend that you focus on the most would be your introduction, your conclusion, and those transitions. They give you roadmaps and help you know where you're going, so you're less likely to feel kind of panicky up there. Yes.